Hey YouTube, what's going on? I got a camera update for you, and I'm just gonna preface in the beginning of this vlog that am, if I seem out of it, if I seem kind of spacey, it's because I am. I had a really long week at work, and it kind of kicked my ass. So I still wanted to do this vlog while I had some time here, and let you guys know what's going on. So let's get into it. Okay, so a couple weeks ago I made a vlog and I showed you guys the Panasonic GH6 kit that I had built up. And then life hit, as it does all the time. And I realized that I kind of went over my skis financially in building that GH6 rig, at least for the moment. And I decided, Nick and I have been dealing with a lot of vet bills, and we had to go to a wedding out in Massachusetts a couple weeks ago. So, and I had to, that trip caused me to take some unpaid time off from work because I've basically run out of PTO. We're getting to the end of the year. Used up all my PTO. Gotta love it. And so it put me in a little bit of a tight space in terms of being able to afford other important things like food and animal food and, all that fun stuff. So I decided to make the wise decision and return everything that I had purchased for that GH6 rig. I got all my money back. And then with that sum of money that I got back, I decided to take a small percentage of it and invest in a camera that at the very least would allow me to continue to do what I love to do more than anything, which is film shit. And in the process of setting a budget and then looking within that budget of what I was capable of getting, I realized that there is a whole line of cameras that I have never owned, and to be honest, I have never used. And those of you that have known me a long time know that I have used almost every camera on the planet. At least camera format that's been made in the last, 20 some years. I've been working with cameras for 24, 25 years now. And I'll be honest that this line of cameras was a line of cameras that I had a little bit of prejudice towards for no reason. Partially because the company that makes them, I've never really been a huge fan of them. But we'll dive into all of this because the camera I'm talking about is the Canon C300. The Canon C300 has been around for quite a few minutes. It came out in, I believe, 2011. Yeah, I remember when it was announced. It was, I think, at NAB 2011, or it might have been at CES. I don't remember, but I do remember that it was 2011. So this camera is a little over a decade old, and it has since gone on to build out a legacy of a bunch of cinema cameras for Canon. And I have never really been a huge fan of Canon. I've never really liked their cameras. The only camera that's a major exception to that prejudice is the Canon XL2. I've owned the Canon XL2 many times over. I had my first one in 2007, fell in love with it. I made a lot of stuff on the XL2. Big fan. I think they hit a home run on the XL2. And every other camera that I've used, even like the XL1, I've never really been a huge fan of. The XL1 was just, I don't know, was a weird thing. And the XLH one was weird. The 5D Mark II. So every other camera that I've gotten my hands on with Canon, never really been a huge fan of. So when Canon announced this cinema line, I was like, I'd rather not. And also at the time when this camera was first released, they were marketing it at like $19,000, so I couldn't even afford it. So I didn't give a shit about it, And then the C500 came out, and that was even more expensive, and I couldn't afford that. And then by the time the C100 came out, I was working with cameras that were shooting at higher bandwidths and higher, I was using the F900 and the Varicam and stuff like that. And, the C100 could only shoot 1080 at like 25 megabits per second. It was a very weak codec, 420 color space, 8-bit. I was like, there's no reason for me to touch this. And so I just kind of poo-pooed the whole cinema line that Canon has made. And now I'm in a unique situation where I decided, okay, well, now I have the ability to actually give these line of cameras a try. And I haven't done extensive shooting with this thing yet. I just haven't had the time. I've had this camera for all of 2 days. It showed up 2 days ago, and I just got off of a very hellacious week at my job. So I haven't really had time to look at it, but I am planning on doing a deep dive into it this weekend and hopefully getting at least one new video on this channel here for you guys. So what I know of the camera so far is that, let me take the battery out of here, is that it shoots, the data that it maxes out at is 50 megabits per second, 8-bit 422 at 1080p. It can do 60 frames per second progressive at 720p, not 1080. So there are some technical limitations there, but I was able to shoot off a couple shots just to see what the footage looked like. I wanted to see what the camera was capable of doing. I did that about an hour ago, just personal tests, and got some shots of the rabbits and did some skin tone tests on my face and all that, fun geeky shit. And I'm honestly, the first impression is I'm really impressed by this thing, especially with it being just a 1080p camera. I'm kind of like embarrassed that I wrote these cameras off for over a decade. And I'm like, why did I do that? So I'm going to be very interested, like, taking this camera out of my house and shooting real world stuff and seeing what, I'm capable of doing, like what its limitations are, where it excels at. And, once I do that, I'd be able to tell you whether or not I could recommend this to a micro budgeted or low budgeted filmmaker in, the modern world. Because I got, so kind of break down the kit here. The Sigma 18-35 I already had. The base plate the camera's sitting on I already had. The rods I already had. The follow focus I already had. And the matte box. Everything else came with the camera kit that I purchased. So the monitor, the handle. There's a detachable hand grip right here that it came with. And then obviously the camera. I already had 2 CF cards. So for those of you guys that are unfamiliar, the media that this camera uses are the original compact flash cards, and this 128 gigabyte card I saw on the screen can get me at the highest bit rate and color space and all that, like the maximum quality you can pull out of this camera. I can get a little over 300 minutes on a 128 gig card. So I have a 128 gig card in the first slot, and then I have an even older CF card. This CF card I've had since high school, which is really dating me. But this is a little 32 gig card, and I think I could get like 80 minutes on this one. So I could run this camera for a long time. It's really crazy how much, when you're shooting on data rates that are much smaller, how much more footage and material you can get on these cards. Whereas like a 1 terabyte hard drive on the Atomos shooting 5.8K ProRes RAW, I was getting, I think, like, I don't even remember, it was like either just over an hour or just under an hour. So pretty wild. The one thing I will say off the bat that I really like a lot is the ergonomics of this thing. I always thought that these cameras were pretty ugly. I'm warming up to them now a little bit. But the ergonomics of it, like, for me being a run and gun artist, this camera is made for people like me, just like in terms of like how it's built. So I think if this camera impresses the hell out of me, the next place that I'm probably going to go is the C500, because the C500 will allow you to shoot 4K RAW out of the SDI, and that's something that would very much interest me. So, but for the time being, just where I'm at financially and, allowing me to continue to do this, the C300 is checking all the boxes for me in terms of just having a camera to shoot something, and then having all the baseline features that I want out of a camera in order to do what I want to do. So that's what's going on with me. I'll do a more kind of in-depth vlog at some point and let you guys know what I think about it. But this is uncharted territory for me, and that's not something that I can say all the time, because I'm pretty much a camera whore. I have to admit that, and I've used a lot of cameras in my lifetime, and to be in to be working with a whole series, like a whole new type of camera that I mean, it's exciting me, to be honest, you know. But most cameras, I mean, once you understand one camera, you can kind of get around all of them. But it's just cool getting the experience now, and you know, because these are very, very widely used cameras. I mean, the C300 I know is still even used today in the corporate video world and stuff like that, and you know, but they're marketed as cinema cameras. You know, they were built to make cinematic shit. So that's it. That's all I got. My brain is fried. I'm gonna go have a nice weekend, and I want you guys to go have a nice weekend. So that's what's going on with me. C300 for now, and hopefully I'll have some footage for you guys later this weekend. So I'll talk to you guys later. You have a good weekend, and take care. Bye.